Welcome back. This video is about assessment number 2 for the Aviation Policy and Strategy module for year 3 of the Bachelor of Arts degree in Airline and Airport Management at the University of West London. It is about the challenges and technologies of managing the airspace above London. Out of 4 possible topics for this assessment, I have chosen question 3, and here is the whole brief. UWL, or University of West London Air Traffic Control Services, a fictional company, operates in the UK and is a direct competitor to NATS, National Air Traffic Services. Airline and Airport Management Consultancy has to advise the CEO of UWL ATCS on the challenges and technologies of managing of London's busy airspace. You may choose any aspect that relates to UK air traffic control. We don't need to use any models, just write a 1000-word report and submit it by Friday the 28th of May 2021. If you have an extension or mitigation or watch it next year, this video may be still useful for you later. So this brief is not very focused, but on slide 28 in week 13, the lecture on how to be a consultant, there are more details. And the key difference is that the fictional company wants to win new business and market share from NATS. And we can choose which aspect of the business we want to advise on. And just some technical details, marking criteria award 25% for each of the criteria: presentation, writing skills, knowledge and understanding. And the assessment is worth 60% of our final module mark. We need to include a cover page with these details, and we go to the assessment now. So, the University of West London Air Traffic Control Services is considering becoming a competitor to NATS. The CEO asked for advice about the challenges and technologies related to managing the London's airspace. This report focuses on finding the most feasible part of NATS ATC business to take over, along with practical and technological challenges related to tenders and the transfer of staff. Our fictional company will be one of 62 air navigation service providers, ANSPs, registered in the UK, and will be competing with NATS. So who is NATS? Most people watching this will probably know what company NATS is, but just in case. Formerly known as National Air Traffic Services, NATS is the leading air navigation service provider in the United Kingdom. It started in 1962, then was a part of the Civil Aviation Authority, CAA. In 1996 was converted into a limited company owned by the CAA, and in 2001 became a public-private partnership. Not only does it control 14 UK airports, the airspace around London and en route traffic over the UK and parts of North Atlantic, but since 2011 also controls 9 Spanish airports. Founding member of 2 ANSP alliances, NATS also provides consulting and engineering services and services to the Ministry of Defence. In other words, a well-established provider, with over 4,000 employees and almost 2,000 of them are air traffic controllers. Data for March 2020. So this is who our fictional company wants to compete with. According to our brief, our area of interest is the airspace and control over London and South East. This roughly corresponds to the London terminal maneuvering area, which after a simplification looks like this. 4 major airports are controlled by NATS, 1 by ANSL, and the regional Southend Airport uses self-supply. The airspace above them is controlled by NATS. The London approach and en route control have been licensed to NATS recently in December 2020 for 10 years, and the license can only be revoked if NATS broke its conditions. But the company would rather renegotiate the contract. Typically, the en route area control is a state monopoly in many countries and it's not subject to competition. But take the above with an asterisk. Technology makes other options possible. Despite being close to tenders, the control over airspace can be delegated to a different country. In March 2021, in a real-time simulation, in case of a control center failure, German upper airspace was controlled from the UK and Poland with data coming from Vienna and Madrid. Due to different electronic systems used by ANSPs, the transfer of control required middleware to connect the infrastructure. The multitude of systems used by air navigation service providers in other countries, and even different centers or towers in the same country, creates a technological challenge. The lack of seamless interoperability makes flying in the UK airspace unnecessarily complex and has a side effect on staff mobility. To seamlessly replace NATS and facilitate staff transfer, UWL ATCS should use the same systems as they are replacing, so not changing systems during the transfer. Since this trial was between established centers, it may be out of reach for our fictional company. So UWL ATCS may not be able to provide the same services because they are not established yet as providing services for ARIA. Therefore, we are focusing on airports. Typically, terminal air navigation services consists of aerodrome, tower and approach services. But in London it's different. Since London approach is provided by NATS from the Swanwick Centre, not from airport towers, TANs at Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, Luton and London City airports do not include approach. To further narrow down our choice, Heathrow and Gatwick are economically regulated, which means they cannot charge more in times of prosperity to build resilience for the times of crisis. And London City Airport is now controlled remotely from the NATS Centre in Swanwick, which creates an extra difficulty in taking over those services. The control over airports is awarded as contracts. This table shows the expiry dates for contracts for the London airports. Stansted and Luton are highlighted as the most feasible airports in London to acquire. Airport passenger numbers and aircraft movements are from 2019. Our fictional company, UWL ATCS, would apply for TANS tenders alongside other ANSPs. Typical contract length is 5 or 10 years and can be extended usually by 2 years. That's why there is +2 in Luton. The most important thing for airports is no service disruption when switching providers. NATS' strengths lie in operational resilience and exit strategies developed during service transfer in Birmingham, Gatwick and Edinburgh Towers. ANSL won the tender for Edinburgh Tower due to stronger exit provisions and resilience, being fully backed by the German government, while NATS is 49% government-owned. To acquire such key airports as Stansted and Luton, our fictional company should have strong exit provisions, ideally with government backing. As the key requirement is no service disruption when switching providers, some staff will need to be transferred to the new provider. Air traffic control services must be provided by controllers trained and validated on local procedures. Training a new controller takes between 1 and 3 years depending on prior experience and ability. The transitions at Gatwick and Birmingham relied on retaining about half of the needed air traffic controllers from NATS by the new provider and recruiting and training the other half. Some NATS personnel may have rights to stay with the company under trust of a promise and refuse to change employer. It is unclear how many valid controllers would transfer from NATS and how many controllers would need training, and this makes the entry cost difficult to estimate. As London City Airport is controlled from the NATS Centre and Heathrow and Gatwick are economically regulated, the only remaining London airports with high traffic levels are Stansted and Luton. Their TANS contracts expire in 2023 and 25, giving UWL ATCS time to prepare for a tender. There are some concerns regarding LUTON, which have been raised by ANSL, such as short contract term, which was only 5 years, and this potentially does not allow to recoup entry costs. The other was lack of senior management engagement, which suggests that it might have been just a market exercise, not a real tender. Possibly they weren't really interested in changing provider. And the third was lack of regulatory guidance regarding the trust of a promise agreement with staff, so they didn't know how many staff they will actually get and how many they would need to train. The 10-year contract length at STANSTED could help spread the entry costs and offer a competitive price. So in conclusion, Stansted and LUTON seem to be the most feasible London towers to acquire from NATS due to high number of aircraft movements, aerodrome service only, no approach, so the training will be shorter because it's just for one specialty, and no economic regulation. Now this is with an asterisk because the Civil Aviation Authority checks this periodically and this may change, so there may be economic regulation on an airport in the future. Now, yeah, unlikely. The area and approach services could be provided from another country, but possibly cheaper at a lower cost, becoming a competitor to NATS, creating market conditions for the London airspace. There will be a competitor, but this practically means providing services from another country's area center. And trusting a new establishment may seem too risky for the UK Civil Aviation Authority, who would need to license those services to the UWL ATCS. So the bid is unlikely to be successful without government backing and strong exit provisions. So implications and recommendations are to facilitate NATS staff transfer, use the same digital systems. So don't add new systems to the mix, and the Civil Aviation Authority and the Prospect Union will provide oversight for transitional arrangements. This is a quote from a designer, award-winning designer who is running two businesses, and his reflection is that clients don't choose the best option, they choose the least risky option. So do not start with changing the existing technology unless it is a client's requirement. First of all, ensure no service disruption, because this is the key requirement, and safety first. If you would like to learn more, here are references used for this report, and if this was helpful, please let me know in the comments. Consider subscribing. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.